Hi everyone, this is Raina. So this video is for people who are Leo parents, as well as anyone who has a child who happens to have Leo as their sun sign. I compiled a list. I created it myself. It was kind of fun to do so. And before I begin, I just wanted to state a few things. I have already done a couple of these, at least two, and I've gotten a little bit of feedback, and I just wanted to say that I am not a parent, so you can laugh right about now and say, oh, she really knows, like she's going to know what being a parent is like. And so I'm perfectly willing to admit that. I respect people who are parents because I know that it must be a very difficult job. It can be a job. It's not just all fun and games to be a parent. And we're coming, or not me, you're coming to parenthood, all of you, from different perspectives, from how you were raised yourself, and how you have observed other people do it, and just your own personal preferences. So it's okay if you disagree with me, or if you just think that I don't have the right to be talking about it. I can handle that. I have studied childhood education, but book learning and everyday immersion in it, I know those are two different things. So don't get me wrong. But the other thing I wanted to state and really clarify, I mentioned in the other videos that my belief is that children should be reasoned with, but I also believe in firm discipline. I just don't believe in hitting. I don't believe in saying, you can't do this, and the kid says, why? Because I said so. Somebody actually brought that up to me, and I don't believe that that is an appropriate answer. I think the person who said that to me assumed that I think that we should let children do whatever they want, because I said provide them choices. I'm not talking about serious choices, but sometimes, especially for very willful children who don't go along with the program very easily, you can give them that illusion of freedom, which is really pretty much an illusion because you're calling the shots ultimately. But if they want to wear a different colored shirt than what you have set out for them or something like that, as long as it's weather appropriate and all of that. But in other words, not fighting over every little thing and giving them, set things that they can choose from that are okay with you, that you think are okay, so that they feel like they have some say in their life. This is only to prevent a lot of power struggles. Because the problem with a lot of adults is they see children as inferior. They may not hate children, they may think that they love children, but they still have that authoritarian attitude that children are not, people really demean children. I see it so much of like, oh yes, I'm older, so I'm obviously much wiser. No, you're more experienced in life, and you're going to, you have more education, but that doesn't mean that children don't have any rights, and that's where I'm coming from. And I really urge people to become much more conscious of how they raise their children, how they discipline them, especially because these are moments where you can really help children to see things within themselves, but also that you can start to see things, because you may realize that these children are hurting when they are being brats, you know what I mean? And that their bratty behavior is born out of something that is very important. They don't feel heard in some way. That doesn't mean that you're a lax parent, that you let them do whatever they want. I don't think that is appropriate parenting whatsoever. I think that's lazy parenting. It's non-parenting. So that's where I'm coming from. So I hope that you can appreciate that. Okay, let's talk about some of the wonderful traits of a Leo parent. First of all, Leo is a fixed fire sign. So one thing about Leo that is very common, just in general, is that Leo is seen as very loyal to people that they love. And I would say that this is due to the fixed modality that Leo has, which means that they have constancy. You know, some people are fickle. They kind of like decide one day that they like someone and the next day they don't. That kind of back and forth can lead other people to question whether or not they're truly loved. Because a person keeps going back and forth, sometimes they might be into somebody and sometimes not. Leo is like that eternal flame. And Leo is very romantic. This is for adults. But for children, they're going to be very warm-hearted. They're going to be very generous. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about with compliments. Leo will not be stingy with compliments. And this is what true generosity is. It's not just about opening your wallet. It's about opening your heart. And people who have an open heart tend to see the good in others. People who are cynical tend to see the negative traits in other people. When a person is like that, they tend to have problems in close relationships, because the human heart is very tender, and even those people who claim to be very tough will not feel like comfortable around somebody who is constantly criticizing them, pointing out flaws, being kind of cold. So the same thing applies to a Leo parent, that a Leo parent will tend to be very affectionate. And this is great for especially infants and toddlers, because they thrive with touch. You've probably heard about those studies where infants were deprived of touch in an orphanage. I think it was in Romania or some Eastern European country. And they were stunted intellectually even, I think. There's like a real need for sensory input with young children, babies and young children. So this is why somebody like a Leo parent can really put their child ahead of the curve, because they're going to not only give them affection, physical affection, but they're going to be open-hearted to them. They're going to give them a lot of emotional, affection, I guess you would call it. And they're also going to give them compliments, so that will boost their self-esteem. And they're going to give them, they're going to just be positive. So they're going to model that type of temperament. If you watch videos on YouTube, you can see when a child is being sassy that they are, you read the comments and people are saying, oh yeah, her mother is probably like that. There was like one with a little girl I'm sure some of you have seen it, where the little girl's in the daycare center or something like that. And she goes, no, you listen to me, to the daycare worker. And I guess it turned out that she was the daughter of one of the daycare workers. But that was her, the woman's co-worker that she was saying this to. And she was really smart. I mean, you can tell she was precocious. So that kind of, people were making comments like, oh yeah, she's probably taking after the mother, and the mother acts like that to people. But the thing is that it works both ways. I mean, you can emulate good behavior too. And so if the child sees that their parent is usually in a good mood, is usually, complimenting others, is very positive in their thoughts and their speech, they're going to tend to be like that too. Leos have a sense of leadership, and this commands respect. So leadership is different than being what I have written down here as a petty tyrant, which is the shadow side of the Leo. But on the positive side of the Leo, we have the person who takes charge of situations. That is going to make the child feel safe. And also, the child is going to be more likely to obey a parent that has clear leadership. But here's the catch. Leadership isn't about barking out orders. And that's one of the problems that sometimes where people get confused, is they think that being a leader means that you're telling other people what to do, being bossy all the time and things like that. Actually, a good leader is able to spot the traits, the good traits of their employees or their, in this case, children, and play them up and let the other person know that they recognize that they have these good qualities. Some people think that being a good leader is by intimidating the people that are under him or her, and by kind of criticizing. It's almost like breaking somebody down. No, that's not being a good leader. That's being a petty tyrant. So the balanced Leo has the positive leadership skills. And this is great for children because children look up to adults. And when an adult is weak, when they are abdicating their responsibility, when they are trying to curry favor with the child because they're insecure and they just want that approval, then the child will sense that, and the child will feel kind of like contemptuous of that parent, maybe not overtly, but secretly they will think that the parent is weak. They will know that the parent is weak, and they won't have respect for that parent ultimately. So the thing that is, and another thing that there were other things I wanted to say about the positive traits. One thing, Leo rules the 5th house of children, so Leo is a natural in dealing with children. They like children. It helps if you actually like children to be able to, maintain a good rapport with them. As all fire signs are, they're like big kids. They're very playful. Playfulness means that a person is spontaneous. If you think of children who are playing, there's not some kind of a curriculum or something that they've written out. They're just like going with the flow, and they're having fun. And that's how a Leo person can be. Now, Leo is going to be a little bit different than Aries because Leo is a fixed sign. So Leo will tend to have its parameters and rigidity because of that fixed energy. But still can be spontaneous, still can be like somebody who enjoys fun things, because Leo rules the 5th house of amusements, parties, games. That's hobbies are the 5th house. Anything that we do for leisure activities, including sports, are actually 5th house too. So it can be that as well. But there's that sense of, life is a party with Leo. And so a child may grow up with a parent who is a Leo, and they may have, wonderful birthday parties, or the Leo parent may just use any excuse to throw a party. So the child grows up with this sense of life. I wrote it down as flair for the dramatic makes life special. And so basically, a Leo person is larger than life, and they want life to be larger than a mundane existence. Even if a Leo parent says, okay, today we're going to clean the house, they might say, okay, and then we're going to have a party tonight, to celebrate cleaning the house. They're not going to just leave you high and dry as a child. They're going to give you something as a reward for doing that. And I think there's a certain aura with Leos that makes them, they're entertaining, that's for sure. They kind of like liven up the atmosphere. I wrote down Mama Lion, and this can go either way, because, and when I say mama, I mean this could be the male Leo too, as the father. There's that protective energy. But here's the thing. Let's talk about some of the possible negative, or the dark side of the Leo parent. Obviously, this is going to be most apparent in Leos who are not exhibiting mostly positive traits for whatever reason. They could be, it could be that they have not healed from something in their childhood, and it makes them kind of imbalanced. And so they have a tendency to play up the negative traits. Like, for instance, we talk about a flair for the dramatic, but if the Leo person doesn't have something going for themselves in their life, then they become drama queens or drama kings. And they start things that are unnecessary to create that sense of something is happening because there's some uproar, when really it's just generating negativity and trying to provoke other people so that they fight them. I'm talking about, having those dramatic scenes because they think that makes life more exciting, when really it's because they haven't really found themselves, or they have, they're still stuck in a negative cycle. One of the shadow aspects of Leo is conceitedness, or I think it's just being conceited, conceit, arrogance, thinking that you're better than somebody else. And when it gets very severe, it can become full-blown narcissism. But that's actually more like self-absorption, so I'll address that separately. But the Leo is the sign of somebody who is proud. Being proud doesn't mean arrogance. It means having respect for yourself, loving yourself, and knowing that you have wonderful qualities that that you want to share with the world, and you're confident. That's one of the things. I don't think I wrote that down, but the Leo parent can be confident, and they can model that for their child. Just like a parent who is insecure models that for their child. But when a Leo parent is not confident, when they feel insecure, that can be when arrogance comes out. Arrogance, when you look down on somebody else, you're really projecting your own sense of shame and unworthiness onto somebody else. Even if you can make a case that person is, maybe somebody else is acting in a trashy manner, or they're dressed very tacky in a tacky way. But that doesn't mean that we treat them like they are inferior. That's where it goes over the line. Everybody might have secret judgments that they're saying, oh wow, look at that outfit or that, but that's where it begins and ends. We don't necessarily treat somebody poorly because we're looking down on them. That's what I'm talking about. And you can have a Leo who's a parent who is, and they can bring their children into this. Oh no, I don't want you to play with that boy or that girl because they're not. I know their parents and their parents, we don't want to associate with them and things like that. Now, this would not be the average Leo person. I just want to make that clear. But sometimes these kinds of behaviors happen when the person doesn't feel good about themselves. And the other thing, too, that I think is really common is that you have a Leo parent who ostensibly is trying to stick up for their child. Let's say that the teacher has a problem with the child and asks to talk to the Leo parent, and the Leo parent acts like their child is a little angel and can't do any wrong. Some of that is because of that loyalty of this is who I love, and then they can do no wrong. But there's ego connected to that. And I think this is one of the biggest dangers of an imbalanced Leo parent, is that their out of control ego can make it so that they need their child to do certain things in order to enhance the Leo parent's sense of self. So the child becomes an ego extension of the parent, and they're using the child to feel better about themselves. They may encourage the child to do different things based on what the parent deems will make them feel special. For instance, academic achievement, or sports, or, some artistic things. And then they can brag and they can say, my child is doing this, my child is doing that. I was thinking back to before Facebook and even before the internet. Some of you who are old enough will remember when there used to be these form letters, and there are actually people who still do these at Christmas time, and I apologize if any of you Leo parents do this. But sometimes when people make these letters, they are trying to keep in touch and let everybody know what is happening with their family, and they want to just send it out all at once so they don't have to do individual cards. So I'm sure a lot of people know what I mean by that. And they would just send out one letter to everybody, and they would keep everybody updated about their child and what achievements they've had. I actually still get one of those every year. And the thing about it is, we would read these, and sometimes we would laugh because we would, some of these people would really be bragging, throughout these letters. And that's the thing that Leos can do when even when they're not imbalanced. That may just be a natural tendency to brag. But when the Leo person doesn't feel significant, they may tend to overdo it, and there's a competitive thing going on where they want to seem like my child is really reflecting me in the best light. I wrote down stage mother because we see with the I'm calling it mother because usually the mother would be the one that would take their child to the modeling call outs or whatever they call them, or the commercials, or the beauty pageants. Again, it's living through the child, trying to forge a sense of identity through another person. And then there can be full-blown narcissism when the person is so self-absorbed that they can only see their point of view. I think Leos can be really vulnerable to narcissism because of Leo being a fixed sign, especially if Mercury is in Leo. It can lead to a rigidity of the mind and an inability to kind of really put yourself in another person's shoes. And everything becomes connected to how the Leo person feels about life itself. And anything that doesn't go along with that is rejected. And that can make it difficult if the Leo parent has a child who is wildly different than they are, who has different values, different goals. Then they can clash mightily. Let's talk about the Leo child. The Leo child is going to probably be creative, even if they have athletic ability as well. It's good to, expose all children to art, but especially these children. They will tend to have creative gifts and also the urge to create. Definitely Leo, because Leo rules the 5th house, and part of that is creativity. I put here warm-hearted and touchy-feely. So just like the parent, the child craves affection, physical affection, as well as emotional affection, but they also want to give it. So they may be, if you're kind of like, I was going to say, if you're like a Virgo or a Capricorn parent and you're kind of, or an Aquarius, and you're kind of a little bit of a cold fish, and you don't naturally do that, you have to kind of override those tendencies so that your child feels accepted and not rejected. Fun-loving. Magnanimous, being above the fray, giving, seeing other people in the best light, giving them the benefit of the doubt. That's generosity of spirit. Confident, and also like leadership abilities. So you may find that the young Leo child is taking charge at a very early age in terms of, maybe running for school president or just anything that puts them front and center, because again, the Leo child craves attention too. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. Seeking success. I didn't mention this about the adult because it wasn't really relevant to how they treat their child. But for the Leo child, there is a desire for excellence. And especially if they have inner planets in Virgo, I would say, they're going to be more perfectionistic and hardworking. Leo is a very hardworking sign though too, but Virgo. So if they have Mars in Virgo, maybe the moon in Capricorn, the moon in Virgo, they may have more of a drive towards being industrious. So, if they ask, from a very young age, make sure that you don't discourage them from helping around the house if that's what they want to do. they may want to imitate what you're doing, and you want to kind of encourage them to do that because they have that desire. But like I said, this goes into leadership abilities as well. I think they're going to tend to be popular, and this goes again with the leadership abilities. And they love to be in the center of attention, so I think they're going to be popular. And so let's talk about some of the things that can go wrong. When, and again, this could be what we call samskaras, these grooves, they call them, but they're coming into the person's consciousness or their spiritual hard drive from other lifetimes, things that are kind of like their weaknesses that they have to kind of like better themselves with. So if they have a tendency to demonstrate some of the more negative traits, and you have been very careful how you raise your child and you try to raise them in a balanced way, yeah, maybe this is past life stuff, and you can help them, especially if they're on the younger side, by kind of anticipating, seeing what those tendencies are and helping them to improve. Like, for instance, if you have a Leo child who tends to be more insecure, like maybe even having the moon in Pisces, or not so sure of themselves, or even Virgo, then make sure that you're that you're praising that child, and praising them specifically, not saying good job. Not that that's ever uncalled for, but I was reading this article because there's like this tendency which kind of like irritates me when I hear parents always saying good job for every little thing. The child puts something on the belt as it, in the grocery store. Not talking about the child helping the parents, although that is a form of helping them, I guess, but just for every little thing that they do being praised. I was reading this article that says that it raises a generation of children who, as adults, they can't do something without feeling like they deserve some kind of feedback. And you're not going to work in a business where you're constantly being patted on the head. And there's actually like parody videos that you can find on YouTube that are hilarious about, the two generations dealing with one another. They're kind of mocking the millennial generation and saying that they always need praise because they were overpraised. So you can check that out. And the young woman quit because she wasn't getting praised. She goes, I think that, she thought the boss was being neglectful because he wasn't praising her all the time. So it was pretty funny. So there really is a need to praise the child, especially if you notice that the Leo child is showing signs of insecurity. But do so in a very specific way. I like the way that you helped me bring up these groceries, and I didn't even have to ask you. You just anticipated it, and I really appreciated that. And you're being very specific about it. Because what can happen is that these children can grow into teenagers, and we know how teenagers are, but this could be like the kind of the mean girl who is snobby, who kind of looks down on others, forms cliques, and is the leader of the clique. And, the narcissist is like the queen bee in the center of all the attention. But attention-seeking behaviors, sometimes children learn, if they are neglected, if they are ignored, that they can still receive attention if they do negative things. We call that negative attention, but it's still attention. So make sure that you are giving your children, it could be children too, and young adults, attention on a regular basis so that they can feel like they are being seen and heard. People, children or teenagers who are seeking negative attention can do things that others can see very clearly are inappropriate or annoying simply because they're looking for that reaction so that they can get attention. And this is what I was referring to earlier when I said about bratty behavior, because that's a form of it. Tantrums. Not talking about teenagers, but any... well, that's not really a good example because it's not so much tantrums as doing things that are naughty to catch the attention of the adult. So anything, misbehaving, they may do because they want you to pay attention. Where it can get serious is with, and this is, by the way, this can be in the classroom too, where they are disrupting the classroom to get attention. When they become teenagers, it can get even more dramatic. The attention-seeking behavior can run the gamut of the way that they look that really rubs you the wrong way may be the one thing that they want to do because they really are looking for that reaction from you. Any fire sign, child or adult may have temper issues where they get very heated, fiery, if you will. And so that could be, especially if the Leo child feels frustrated about something. But in general, the Leo child will tend to be positive if they are raised in a way that is respectful of them. They will probably grow up to, make you even more proud than you already are. So definitely one thing that I would not do is don't show favoritism. Never, actually it should never, with any sign child should a parent show favoritism to one child over another. Narcissistic parents do this all the time because they want to create chaos. And if they show favoritism to one child over the other child or children who feel slighted will now resent that child because they feel like that child is getting what is rightfully theirs. And that can be quite a blow to the self-esteem. So, I think I covered just about... Oh, well, the one thing I wanted to say is don't neglect any child, but Leo child, give them a lot of attention. Shower them with attention. Because Leo is one of those signs where it's very easy for them probably to feel deprived of attention. And they really crave it, and you don't want them to seek out it from a negative standpoint and do something crazy just to get attention. Okay, that's what I have for you, and if you would like a personal reading, I have all kinds of readings. The link is below. Take care. Bye.